So how many have you mentioned in terms of how many white men have there been who've been successful? How many black men have there been successful of that ilk? You tell me that if Obama had the character of Donald Trump, he would have survived.
This is the biggest event I've ever been involved with. That's how big it's going to be.
Right.
It's huge.
I got in the car with my dad and I went there and I just said, this is a load of crap, innit? Along those lines. And he went, I said, what do you think? And he went, I just want my son back.
I stood on the side of the road and watched his car drive off into the distance, and I'm in the rain and I'm watching thinking, what? I've just battered him.
Welcome to Upfront with me, Simon Jordan. This episode is something slightly different. It's the best bits. When I was asked to do this podcast with William Hill, I wanted to have people with strong opinions that could stand them up under proper scrutiny. I wanted a people with a range of backgrounds from different sports to find out what made them tick. The one thing that linked all the people I've interviewed is the fact that they're winners. A fundamentally important part of the podcast is to ascertain how they reached the pinnacle of their sports. And I very much enjoyed my guests to detail what drove them to the very pinnacles of their sport. This absolute unequivocal belief that, and resilience that you show has to be just more than belief, doesn't it?
I don't know if it's just an innate toughness or maybe drawing on just, I don't know, from tough training camps and tough fights and maybe scrapping at school or having my big brother beat me up as a kid and just coming back from like street fights as a kid. And I've got somebody who's twice the size of me and there's two or three of them. And I've ended up in a thorn bush head first.
Because I just found it remarkable, Carl.
And when I'm in the boxing ring, there's nobody hitting you from behind and there's nobody sneaking up on you. They're in front of you and it's fair. There's a referee there if someone throws an illegal blow. So when I'm in there and it gets tough and it gets hard and I get hit with a shot and I'm maybe a little bit dazed or I'm hurt to the body, it's only a body shot. Guy's got gloves on. You know what I mean? I'm going home later. It's all fair and it's all above board. It's all legal. I'm here because I want to be here.
Am I willing to take the shots?
Yeah.
To get through, to beat him down. Yeah. And that's, boxing is a brilliant sport, but it's a brutal sport. The guys that were more skillful than me, I outworked them. I trained harder than them, and I was physically strong, long arms, big hands, could punch like hell, and I was determined, I was driven, and they'd train and do 10 rounds in the bag, I'd do 15, and I'd just work harder and harder and harder, and that's what you get to a level in any sport, and suddenly you're competing with guys that are as good as you are.
Yeah. And there's got to be a factor in it.
And you talk about that drive and you talk about the determination. People say, yeah, of course you need to be determined, but this is a different level of determination.
I get a buzz out of
overcoming adversity, proving people wrong.
Yeah, that drives me.
Yeah.
Even I'm driven, but kind of am I driven a little bit more at the moment? Yeah, I might not say too much of that publicly, but we're working our butts off at the moment. There's no expectation.
I just had confidence, lots of confidence, which I think is important. Bordering at times when I was younger, maybe with arrogance. That's not a bad thing, I don't think. If you want to be, at the end of the day, if you're determined and you want to go to the top in your sport, you have to make a lot of sacrifices on the way. And you have to have tunnel vision. And I had tunnel vision. I didn't want to, I brushed everything aside. I wanted to play cricket. Once I signed on, then that was it.
Confidence or arrogance?
Well, it's confidence, but sometimes you have to compare that with arrogance to get the message through.
Yeah.
So it's if you drive through the middle of those two, but no, without that, you won't achieve anything in sport.
What people have to realise about me, when they talk about winners, you assume that everybody goes into football because they want to win trophies.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I always viewed football as an entertainment industry.
All right.
And my first thought when I go out on a football pitch is, I want to entertain people today. Now, on the back of that, entertaining people for me is about creating and scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people go and watch football matches for. So on the back of that leads to results. But that wasn't my primary motivation. My primary motivation was to enjoy myself on a football pitch because I knew I was good at it. And I wanted to make people happy by watching me play football. I think for 20 years of my life as a jockey, I don't think I was ever content. I was never satisfied. I was never happy. I was happy being miserable. I always wanted more. I was never satisfied.
But that's the nature of ambition, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've always been the same.
Never content.
Absolutely the same.
Never content. And
very critical of yourself.
The goal always move. And I went to bed and it's a completely different world we live in a completely different society now. And I went to sports psychology when I was 23 because it was a thing that was becoming, something that was talked about. I think even maybe Tiger might have even, but I just thought, but I went because I thought it might make me better. Do you know what I mean? I went because I was open-minded to think that this could make me, and I'm not being disrespectful to them because it definitely helps some people and it makes people better. And that's what you should always, but
aspire to, yeah.
Aspire to. It didn't make me better because I never wanted to be happy with not winning. I wanted to go to bed at night miserable when I was crap at what I was meant to be good at.
One of the most robust conversations I had was with John Barnes about discrimination and whether our national game was institutionally racist. And I wanted to explore this complex and pejorative subject in great detail. You equate the lack of opportunities that you had through managerial positions.
Not just me.
But let's just do it with you.
No. Because what you're doing, and then you'll say, oh, because you failed or whatever. Forget about me, because you have. Do you think? Put it this way. Do you think? And I love Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
You think with Frank Lampard's record, if he was black, he would be given opportunities?
I don't think he should have been given this opportunity.
But he is.
But why would he
has been? Let's talk about Celtic.
Yeah, exactly. Do you really believe, as a result of your career, that you haven't got jobs because you're black?
What would you say if I told you, and you can Google this while you're here, that I have a better win percentage than Steven Gerrard at Rangers?
I believe you, and I've looked at your record.
So why was I not given longer?
I don't know. You're going to tell me, I hope, because a 65%.
Well, I suppose I've been telling people for the last 20 years, and every time I say this, they go, well, you tell me. Because everybody,
me included, goes, well, if you want to have role models in football, if we're going to make this argument, because I used to have this argument with Ian Wright about role models, some of them might want to be successful every now and again, like John Barnes. He had a chance at Celtic. And then I go and look at your record and go, well, that's not right. He got a 65% win record, and then he got this moniker of losing to Inverness Caledonian Thistle, whatever it was, and they gave the supercalifragilistic atrocious or whatever it was, right? Well, why were you given the job? Yeah. And then B, why were you taken out when there's a 65% win record, which is not bad, is it?
I was given the job because Kenny had faith in me.
Yeah.
Kenny had faith in me. So my 65% is not great for not great, but Steven Gerrard's 64 is great. That's why he got the Aston Villa job.
Yeah, which I said he shouldn't have got, by the way.
But regardless of whether his experience he should have got or not, people say that that's not bad. And if you look at other people's records, but here's the thing. Why are black managers who are given jobs?
Yeah.
What I say about black managers, I'll never say. What I should say is that black managers should never come out, and black people can't, because we have to have humility. Unfortunately. Because I don't think there could be a black Simon Jordan.
Why not?
Because you're too opinionated. And if you're a black, you would get slaughtered more than you get slaughtered now. 100%.
Do you think?
And a female. You think you could have a black Boris Johnson?
Why do you think that when you've got 17% of the cabinet made up of black and minority ethnics? You've got 8-10% of FTSE 100 companies. These are influential people that are speaking out.
These are the elite. I'm talking about the character. You can't have a female Simon Jordan because women aren't allowed to be that way. Black people aren't allowed to be that way.
Karen Brady's allowed to be this way.
Because she has lots of money. And how does she have lots of money?
No, not necessarily because no, come on now. You can't just give an answer that she had to go on a journey to be accepted. The one thing that Karen Brady could never have got was accepted.
And once again, you know what we can do? And of course, and you know what? We had Obama as well. Isn't it great for black people? We had a black prime minister. You can't give individual examples and then say, oh, well, women are okay because look at Karen Brady.
Well, I can look at Lorraine Rodgers then. There was a trend. It was great.
You can give 3 or 4.
I can go on listing successful women.
You can't. Like you just mentioned
Margaret Thatcher.
Like you mentioned 5 black.
Theresa May.
Oh, right.
We can keep on talking about successful women.
Keep going.
Anita Roddick. We can keep on talking about successful women.
No, we're not successful women. I'm talking about the characters of them.
But their character was what made them successful.
So, how many have you mentioned in terms of how many white men have there been who've been successful? How many black men have there been successful of that ilk? You tell me that if Obama had the character of Donald Trump, he would have survived. Or if Rishi Sunak, forget about Rishi Sunak, like Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
So therefore, white men are given longer and given more leeway to be arrogant, to be whatever they want, and because they're go-getters, aren't they? Right. If you're black, if you're female, then you can't be that way. And this is obvious. So
Well, it's not obvious.
So-
it's obvious to you.
It's
It
obvious
doesn't
to
feel
me.
obvious to me.
But it is not because you're not offended. You're not affected by it.
Well, I'm as affected by someone that's arrogant or confident or assertive as the next person, but I'm not affected by arrogant and assertive and confident people.
And once again,
and I don't care if they're black, white,
I'm not
orange, or
talking
green.
about you. I'm talking about society. Society would not
But
accept.
I think I'm
society would not
reflective of an
accept. No,
element
you're
of
not.
society.
Society would not accept a black Simon Jordan.
Prior to that recording with John, I took it upon myself to read his book, The Uncomfortable Truth About Racism, because I wanted to make sure that when I was debating with John, I'd availed myself of his particular point of view rather than being entrenched in my own. Another person that I was particularly interested in interviewing was the former #1 women's tennis player, Victoria Azarenka. I first met Victoria in Qatar when I was over there for the World Cup. And when spending time with her, I found her perspective to be very strident, but very interesting, but also far more encompassing than you normally get from sports stars. Specifically, as a Belarusian athlete, she was obviously very plugged into the situation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and she had very strong views about her experiences as an athlete as a result of that. So when I spoke to her in this studio, I asked her what the tour had been like ever since Putin's invasion of the Ukraine.
Well, I mean, it's, I think the last 18 months have kind of shook the world. I think myself, I experienced that quite heavily. I cannot say more heavily than any Ukrainian players because, there's no bombs flying into my house. I am very, as I told you in Qatar, it's very emotional, very, very emotional thing for me. I feel really sad. I feel really bad for so many innocent people who are struggling. Actually not many people know that. My dad's side, I am also half of my side is Ukrainian. Right. My name is not Azarenka, it's Azarenko, which is actually a Ukrainian name as well. And I have so many friends in Ukraine, have family in Belarus. I know so many people in Russia. So I want to speak about Belarusian people. I never felt much of difference when I grew up, because I always used to go to these tournaments when I was a kid. We would go to Ukraine by train there and back. I've met, many players. And it never felt like we are too different.
Different countries,
It didn't feel like that ever to me. They have their own language, we have our own language, slight differences but no, I couldn't really feel like there was any difference. Even when I went on tour, and I would see, Ukrainian players, Russian players, Belarusian players, we kind of all spoke. It's never been. And this, this war just divided nations so much. And I can understand why.
Of course. But as a sports star, it's being visited, the sins of other people's choices. It's an immutable scenario for you. You were born with a Belarusian passport. Mm-hmm. You live in America. You've lived in America for a very long period of time. And by the very nature of your passport, you were banned from Wimbledon last year. How did you feel about that situation?
I was very clear from the beginning, and I'm very, very clear for the last actually 18 months. For me, what's important is about helping people in the difficult situation. And what can a person, an organization can do to help people in need. Me, myself, I'm one person, and I don't need to scream and shout on how many things I've done since this last 18 months to people to help, because that was always my objective, is who can I help? How can I help in
But you
situation?
were unhappy about Wimbledon starts though, weren't you?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, that was a good move.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it achieved anything. Maybe some people think otherwise. I thought that there were better situations, how to handle that. And I was on part of being proposing those. I thought that donating prize money to humanitarian aid, which I said that I would.
Right.
And I've got 7 top players to agree to donate that. I think that would have been a lot more helpful. It would have shown unity that people do want to help. And that's what was important for me from the beginning.
It's not something I spend a great deal talking about, but having had panic attacks and ADHD, I found this particular conversation incredibly intriguing. Somebody who has contended with significant mental health challenges, yet still competed at the top, is darts player James Wade.
I always knew there was something a little bit strange with me from ever since I can remember memories of, like what I spoke about earlier, fitting in school and not fitting in, and fitting in with people and not fitting in. I didn't fit in with many things. But when it all comes to head was, I think it was 2009, I got a scaffolding company to put scaffolding around my house. And I knocked, and this is no exaggeration, I knocked the back wall off of my house, like put props up. And I literally knocked the back of my house off. I started taking the roof off. And this happened in a real short space of time. And my manager at the time, he said, what the fuck are you doing? I went, I'm having an extension. He goes, James, you can't have an extension. I said, why is that? He goes, you've got no planning permission. You spent most of your money. What are you going to do it with? And I went, I'm just going to do it. And that was at the point where I'd just gone off. I wasn't even in this worldly. I wasn't thinking.
And who took you to where you needed to go to be able to be properly evaluated?
My dad, my dad never. Me and my dad aren't like that, so I didn't want to go to anywhere. And then after people talking to me for a long time, probably 2 or 3 hours, they managed to convince me that if I'm not going to go to there, will you go to the Priory? And I didn't know what it was, and I said, okay, I'll go. And then just as I was about to go, I said, no, I'm not going. And then my dad just said to me, can I take you?
Yeah.
And I was like, I tried, yeah. And I was, so yeah, I got in the car with my dad and I went there and I just said, this is a load of crap, innit? Along those lines. And he went, I said, what do you think? And he went, I just want my son back. And that was, yeah, that was,
the beginning of a journey.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, that was, that was when, but then when I got there, it was like a relief, because then I knew there was something that wasn't quite right. And I knew there was an answer to it. It wasn't me just being awkward, which I am very awkward, ask anyone that knows me. It wasn't just that. There was a reason for me being like I was. And as soon as that was discovered, it was like a massive weight off my shoulders.
There's nothing wrong with being awkward. I'm a fully paid up member of the awkward squad myself.
Yeah.
So no problems there.
Yeah. So yeah, that was how it all come to light. And it was probably the best thing I ever did. Because by now I would have ruined every,
because you know where you're going and you know why you're going that way.
Yeah, and I know why I'm doing it, and I people can help me. People can help me now, and I can help myself. Which that's the biggest thing, helping yourself.
Absolutely.
Rather than just burying your head in the sand and just carry on being as you are, you can kind of catch light, and you think, I'm in a dark place, and when you catch that bit of light, you think that's why I'm doing this, and I know what to do, rather than going right down that
coping
tunnel.
mechanism.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. A lot of the athletes I've spoken to have been very open about the adversity and, in certain cases, the trauma that they've faced. Most of them have been able to use these negative experiences to drive them onto success. Troy Deeney is one of those that's experienced these things both as a child and, in his case, as an adult when he ended up in prison.
The long and short of it is, I talk about the incident because I feel I have to, because it's part of my journey, part of my story. But I am also always conscious, and I hope you don't mind me using the platform, there was a victim on the end of it and a family on the end of it. And I don't ever want it to come across that I am glamorizing it or anything of that nature. So I just wanted to just get that in, because I feel like if that was my kid, I'd be absolutely fuming that there's somebody talking about it and he's being considered...
Lionized.
Yeah, considered great off it sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not framing it that way.
No, I'm just saying
I'm being blunt with you about it, and you're being honest about your views on it.
Yeah.
And if you've reached a point or reached a point at the time that you realise that there was someone on the receiving end of it,
100%. That's why I pled guilty
ultimately
straight
you're
away.
a high-profile footballer, and people are going to say, "Well done, you for coming out of prison and surviving and making a success of your life." And the person that got the kick up the arse and all the trouble that they had as a result of their interaction with you is sitting there thinking, "Well, who was the victim in this?"
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah, no, I get that. You described it as the worst experience, but the best thing that's happened to you.
Yeah.
I think I know what that means, but I want you to tell me what it meant to you.
The night of that incident was the day I found out my dad was dying.
Yep.
So, again, not trying to make any excuses. Say the heads would have said, stay in, have a cry, have a few sherbets in the house. Younger Troy, I'm going out, I'm going to get bladdered, I'm going to forget about the world. And everyone knows, because I've said it so many times, bury my dad on the Friday, go to jail on the Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm mentally not in a space of, I'm just surviving at this point. I'm just getting through it. And then obviously you go to a jail. I didn't go into a soft jail to start with. I was in a proper jail, and people let me know that I was an idiot.
What was the club's reaction to you?
I'm the most luckiest man alive, because Lawrence was selling it to Gino at the time. So in that spell, from the season ending, me going to jail, and the season re-picking up, where Gino Pozzo, the Pozzo only bought the club, and all of the players, if you remember, 46 players came in that summer. Nobody looked and went, where's the number 9?
Right.
Because there was just so much to go on in terms of training ground, all of the infrastructure that happens. And by the time they'd got round to saying, well, who's that number 9? Because Matty Vidra wanted number 9.
Yeah.
And they went, well, who is that? Oh, he's in jail, but he'll be home in 2 weeks. And it kind of got to that point where it's like, well, let's just see if we can get some money back for him, kind of thing. But yeah, in terms of the experience, it was awful, because I needed to figure out who I am. I realised that financially I had nothing behind me, about 10 grand's worth of savings and a shitty car to show for it in the area that I was from. And then, makes you grow up. But the best thing that happened was I had to go to therapy. That was part of one of my conditions.
Right.
And that got me into the space of talking
What kind of therapy?
At the time, it was drug and alcohol abuse.
Right.
Because that was part of my my stipulations to come out on tag. I had to do 5 hours worth of that. But it also got me understanding and thinking myself. And it also made me stop. One thing that anybody, and I'm sure your family would have said if you asked him, you've got nothing but time in jail.
Yeah.
So
to reflect.
Yeah, and I'm sat there for the first couple of days, was like 22 hours in this cell with a fella I don't know. We're on the bunk bed, the shitter's there.
Yeah.
Like all my ego and all of the gravitas of what being a footballer is absolutely been stripped away.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this what it is? And there's a reality that hits you. Thankfully, that hit me, and thankfully even more, I was able to start taking that in. And I just said this will never happen again. And everything I always said that my dad had did to me, yes, he was physical, but he left me so many times going in and out of jail that I had to grow up on my own.
Yeah.
Well, I've just left my 2-year-old son there. So I'm no better than the man I was saying did all this to me, because I'm doing it to him.
Let's go from the raw honesty of Troy Deeney onto my attempt to get Frank Warren to be truthful about Tyson Fury's next fight. Frank was attempting to detail Tyson Fury's next fight against MMA star Francis Ngannou as something vaguely meaningful. I just wanted him to be honest. You can't possibly be telling me that Tyson Fury fighting Francis Ngannou is a game changer. You referred to game changers the other day. This can't be what you were
just explain why it's a game changer. We just now work. We now are promoting in Saudi Arabia. How's it not a game changer? We're not reliant on anybody else. We actually are having events on. We're putting the events on. We're not sitting around waiting for, let's wait now and let everybody be held up to next year. We're putting an event on. The reality is we're doing a show in October. In Saudi.
So your game
the biggest show. And it's a game changer as far as they come. And as regarding what you're saying about is it a game changer? Yesterday on Twitter.
Yeah, are you going to use social media as a blueprint for making
You're using it.
No, I'm
you
not.
say to me, have you seen what they're saying on social media about this fight? Can't have it both ways.
No, I haven't said that.
Be careful what you wish for.
No, be careful what you wish for. I don't give a monkeys what they say on social media about this fight. I think it's a dog with fleas. Okay. I don't think the WBC champion of the world should be in a position where the WBC give all this old fanny about he's a special kind of champion. So we give him special.
Nothing to do with him.
Yes, they did. They said that. Well, then why isn't he being made to have a mandatory?
Sorry?
Why hasn't there been a mandatory lined up for him?
Because the two guys who were ordered to fight for the mandatory not fought. Because
they're move them out of the way. Make another mandatory then.
Because they're waiting to see what happened in December in Saudi. Deontay Wilder weren't fighting until then. That's why.
But it's poor.
Now they're negotiating.
It is poor,
it ain't my
Frank.
fault.
It's poor,
it's
though,
not my fault, is it?
I mean, we're looking at the fights that are being made out there. We listen to Tyson. And I know that you and I discussed Tyson on a number of occasions, and you know that I come from a position of admiration for Tyson Fury. I don't agree with a lot of things that come out of his mouth, but I do regularly campaign for the fact that generationally, I think he's the best fighter around. But going back to the point around this fight with Francis Ngannou, what I want you guys to do is I want you to be honest.
Right, let me be honest.
Because a lot of you are not honest, right? You say one thing is this and it's not. This is not about Tyson Fury, the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. This is one thing and one thing only. This is a money fight.
This is the biggest event I've ever been involved with. That's how big it's going to be.
Right.
It's huge. And it'll make a lot of money.
Yeah. It's just a money fight, though, isn't it?
Okay.
There's no credibility in it. It's just a money fight.
Well, let me finish. It's going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. And you've got the best, the lineal champion, and you've got the number one heavyweight in UFC.
Yeah.
Right? The guy in UFC decides he wants to fight. So fine, I haven't got a problem with that. For the fight's made. Sam Jones, who looked after, at the time, Joe Joyce, made a statement yesterday saying that Joe Joyce actually sparred with him and he had 8 rounds real tough sparring with him. Now, I don't know where I'm not a UFC fan. I don't watch it, but I've watched it over the last couple of weeks and this fella whacks.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
What's he going to do? He's going to come in the ring.
I think he's going to get his ears boxed off by Tyson Fury.
If he does, he does. That's his choice. He's getting paid a heck of a load of money. But let me tell you something. It's a massive, massive, massive event. The biggest event out there. Yeah. It'll break box office records.
I think often there's a lack of pundits across the board that are able to have strong opinions, but more importantly, stand them up. One pundit who I do admire is former cruiserweight world champion Johnny Nelson. And it's safe to say his rise to the top was not without challenges.
When I drew with Carlos de Leon, the journey was people who I didn't know in the street speaking about me in such a derogatory term.
Why did that bother you? Total strangers.
But you know what? It wasn't 1, it was 2, it was 3, it was 4. And they made it quite clear, Nelson's such a wanker. You pick up a newspaper, kept seeing cartoon jokes about the fight. I think the best joke I saw was a guy was in a coma for 10 years and they put the Carlos de Leon and Johnny Nelson fight on. He woke up to turn the TV off to go back to sleep again. And so
it's quite funny, though, isn't it?
It was funny. But what I'm saying is, but at the time I'm pretty sensitive. So at the time I'm thinking, you know what? That's somebody's son you're talking about.
Yeah.
That you're talking about somebody. So little things like that. I know if you're not into boxing, I'm saying to you, I'm saying this broke me. I want you to understand how it makes you so paranoid about everything and everybody around you. I had sponsors like knocking on my door left, right, and centre saying, we want to give you this, that, and the other. The next day, so my mum's house was a council house. I thought, with the money, I'm going to buy her house for her. That's my first thing I'm going to buy. I bought a house for her. And about a week or so after the fight, I phoned the guy up that was all over me before the fight. And he was going to put all double glazing in the windows and everything.
And he gives you the hi hat.
And he said, I said, hey, it's Johnny, when are you going to send the lads around to fit the windows? He said, you what? He said, you've got no chance. I'm embarrassing with that. What kind of shit was that? He said, I'm sorry, son. Proper straight like that. You'll pay like everybody else. From being so nice and so respectful and so all over me before. And I can remember that phone call. I thought,
but it's good though, isn't it? Because what it does, it wakes you up, makes you realise that the only safety net in life you've got is your own arse, right?
That's why I say it was the worst and best stage of my life, because I'd realised what human nature can be like. And I realised how don't be suckered in, don't be fooled by what you see. You know, there's many types of love. I love you when the sun's out. When the sun's down and things are going bad, I don't want to know.
Well, it's like the rainbow. It's the umbrella and the sunshine effect. When you've got lots of money and you're being very successful, the banks will lend you lots of money.
Yeah.
When you've got no money and you need some money, they'll not be there. It's called the umbrella and the sunshine effect.
And that's what. So after that, once I start to make some money in boxing, and even now, when people are saying, I want to give you these gloves, I want to give you this tracksuit, I take it and I give it to everybody in the gym. Because what doesn't make sense is, why would you sponsor somebody that's already got money, that can afford it, and not sponsor a kid that's got nothing?
But that's the irony
of it.
But that's the irony of it, isn't it? When you're the person with the most money in the room, I found that everyone wants to buy you a drink, and you're the person that needs to be least bought a drink. And that's why I never took. And when I was with the football club and other businesses, people want to throw things at you. I never took anything from anyone because I never wanted to be beholden to anyone. I never wanted anything from anyone, and I was going to get there because of myself.
And that's why. So now, Sam, I'm bitter at these people that I saw a nasty side of. I'm not going to say
you're not bitter now, are you?
No. It made me think to myself, I'm not going to be rude to you. I'm not going to be disrespectful to you. I know who you are. You don't have to. I know who you are. So therefore, it got to a point when I had stuff, and all of a sudden they think I've developed amnesia. Oh, we want to give you this.
It's probably the greatest thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, it was,
because it taught you a lesson about the reality of life.
Exactly. Now you asked me about that eureka moment for me, and mine was I was sparring with the world light heavyweight champion, and I just battered him. Fabrice Tioso, his name was. I just battered him in the ring. It was raining. I remember my mum getting paid £100 a day. And now my confidence has come thinking, you know what, John, you've been all over Europe. You're handling these boys. Watertight, it's pissing down with rain. And my bed set I'm staying at is across the road from the gym. There's a white limousine outside, stretch limo with a driver in, and a beautiful mixed race woman sat in the back with a little white poodle. I've been there a few weeks now. I'm like, so this woman, like, damn. Anyway, so I smiled and she smiled back. She wasn't smiling at me. She was smiling at Fabrice because it was his missus. And he said, see you tomorrow, Johnny. Tapped me on the shoulder and got in the car. And I stood on the side of the road and watched his car drive off into the distance. And I'm in the rain. And I'm watching thinking, what? I've just battered him.
And he's in that.
And he's in that. And I'm walking there and so that point there, I said, Johnny, what is the difference here? And listen to me, when you're a sparring partner and you're on your own, you talk to yourself a lot because you've got to have a conversation with yourself to prepare yourself to get in the ring, and it's like a fight every day. And I said, Johnny, well, the difference between you and him is this: he can perform in public, you can't. Get your shit together. And that was my eureka moment. I thought, I am never going to lose again. And from that day onwards, I thought, the day when I lose, I'll be done.
From one pundit I admire to another who ironically couldn't cope with my robust questions while sat in a radio studio with me. Despite that, Souness is renowned for his forthright opinions and leadership qualities. Both of those were on display when we discussed the Man United captain Bruno Fernandes.
He is obviously not a leader. It's as plain as the nose on the end of your face. He is not a leader. His attitude when they went 3-0 down at Liverpool was appalling.
I agree with you. That's not leadership in any shape or form, the way that he reacted to the adversity, the way he appeared. He denies it and says that I wasn't looking to come off. But the whole kit and caboodle from pushing linesmen
at the time, Simon, you would not want to be in the trenches with him. Simple as.
What can you imagine that Ten Hag is thinking as a former manager by doubling down when the whole world, everyone looked at that Bruno Fernandes situation.
And everyone came to the same conclusion.
Everyone came to the same conclusion, except the fellow that actually makes the decision.
I think that is another example of modern management. The tail wags the dog in football today. And there's only one club in the country right now where that doesn't happen. That's Man City, where the manager is all powerful. But the manager is the boss in name only. He's thinking Fernandes is a good player. Fernandes, you'll see, be a star when they're on top and they're on the front foot. And he's creative and he is a real talent. And he is a real talent. Mm-hmm. But he showed a side to him that day at Anfield, which is very unattractive. But the man you have right now is willing to overlook that because he knows going forward that he will win him games, he will score him goals. But in his head, the manager's head, he will know the first time I come up against a really difficult situation again, is he going to go missing? And I think the manager knows the answer to that.
I'll be back next week with another sports star who's led his field. I'll be speaking to Stephen Hendry, where I found out about his remarkable career, his remarkable achievements, the people that influenced and controlled his destiny, and also the debilitating circumstances that brought his career probably to a premature end. Upfront is brought to you by William Hill. To keep up to date with all the episodes, make sure you follow the podcast on whichever app you use. 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.